So today we're going to look at Miyamoto Musashi's classic, The Book of Five Rings, but not as some dusty old text. We're going to treat it as what it really is, a practical field guide for life today. We'll explore how this legendary samurai's wisdom can help us tackle our own challenges with a whole lot more clarity and purpose. You know how it is, right? We've all been there. You read a book or hear an idea that's absolutely brilliant, you feel totally inspired, and then, well, nothing really changes. A week later, you're right back where you started. So why is it so hard to make these great ideas actually stick? Well, that's the exact gap we're going to bridge in this explainer. Using Musashi's framework, we're going to build a really simple way to go from just passively collecting ideas to actually using them when it really counts. This right here, this gets to the heart of what Musashi believed. For him, true skill was never about just reading or memorizing lessons. It's forged in practice. It's the huge difference between knowing the way and actually walking the way. And that brings us to the central idea for today. Let's reframe Musashi's teachings as a strategist's field guide. Think of it as a practical tool designed for the real world, for you. So what do we mean by a field guide? It's basically your go-to mental checklist. It's a way to ground your thinking, not in some abstract theory, but in what actually works, right here, right now. Okay, so here's the core of it, a simple 5-step process. First, you define a crystal clear objective. Then, you embrace simplicity. You maintain your composure. You practice adapting to change. And finally, you conduct a review to learn from it all. Step 1 is all about clarity. Musashi was adamant that any technique is just a tool to reach a goal. Everything else, all the fancy flourishes and complexities, is just a distraction. So the very first question you have to ask is, what am I really trying to accomplish here? And that leads us perfectly into step 2, embracing a kind of radical simplicity. This is all about the art of stripping away everything that is not essential. When you get rid of the distractions, whether they're physical or mental, you make room for real focus and purpose. Step 3 moves inward. It's about maintaining your composure. Musashi had this great phrase for it, determined though calm. It's about building a mind that doesn't get rattled by stress or chaos, so you can act with precision when the pressure is on. Next up, step 4 is all about fluid adaptation. You know, Musashi famously used water as a metaphor for good strategy. Water is never rigid, right? It just flows around obstacles. This teaches us to avoid getting locked into one single approach and instead to just flow with things as they change. And the final step, consistent review, is what makes this a real learning loop. Musashi told his students to investigate thoroughly. For us, that means building in a habit of review, just looking back at our actions, seeing what worked, what didn't, and then tweaking our approach for next time. Okay, so we've got the 5 steps down, but how do you remember all that in the heat of the moment? Well, that's where these 5 maxims come in. Think of them as simple mental cues you can use anytime during your day. These are like your daily compass. To keep your composure, just tell yourself, be determined but remain calm. For simplicity, strip away the non-essential. To stay focused, see the big picture. For flexibility, adapt like water. And to learn from experience, perceive what cannot be seen. All right, so this all sounds great, but how does this ancient strategy actually work in our modern lives? Let's get practical and look at a few examples. Let's start with work. Before you dive into a big project, take a second to define that one single most important objective. Then bring in that simplicity principle. Get rid of all the little tasks that are just distracting you from that main goal. It's an amazing filter for your focus. And this works in our relationships too. Think about a difficult conversation. The goal isn't to win, it's probably to understand each other. By keeping your composure, that determined though calm mindset, you can adapt how you communicate and really listen, kind of like water flowing around a rock. This is also a total game changer for building new habits. Say you want to exercise more, just simplify the goal. Instead of some complicated routine, maybe start with a 10-minute walk. Something so easy you can't talk yourself out of it. Then, at the end of the week, you review and adjust. Okay, theory and examples are one thing, but practice? Practice is everything. So let's actually walk through a simple exercise you can start using today. Let's call it the Field Guide Reset. The very next time you feel stuck or overwhelmed, I want you to just pause. Ask yourself, what's my immediate objective? Then remove just one non-essential distraction. And finally, take one small, calm, adaptive step forward. It's like a mental reset button you can hit anytime. And all of this points to a much bigger goal. Musashi believed that if you really master strategy in one part of your life, you start to see the hidden patterns in everything else. As he put it, from one thing, know 10,000 things. That's because real understanding in one area, it translates everywhere. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Musashi's wisdom isn't some artifact in a museum to be admired from afar. This field guide, with its focus on objective, simplicity, composure, adaptation, and review, is a real, practical tool that's meant to be used every single day. And that really brings us to the final, most important question. It's a question for you. Now that you have this framework, this simple checklist, how are you going to use it to finally close that gap between knowing something and actually doing it? We're going to keep exploring these ideas in our next explainer. But until then, you can find a lot more insights just like this in our full classic Mosaic Truth playlist. Thanks so much for joining me.